Welcome everybody, Charley Hogwood with Survival Dispatch here today. So it's finally official. We are in a declared pandemic on the planet. Planet Earth is now in a pandemic situation. So most of us already knew that that was the case, but now things are really going to start to change. Suddenly we found ourselves in a climate where we could be stopped in our tracks, locked down, medical containment, quarantine, martial law, whatever you want to call it. There could be a time where we are forced to stay where we are, whether that is at home or on a journey somewhere. So we've already experienced some food and supply shortages, been some panic buying. There's been some things going on as the rest of society is caught up with us almost, or trying to. So we got school closures, business closures, governments are enacting their continuity of operations plans, mass gatherings, sporting events, large sporting conferences, seasons all together are either being postponed or canceled. So that's only going to get worse as time goes along. So here we are. We're in the middle of March. We've got some time ahead of us for things to get a little more spicy. Large-scale travel is already being restricted across the board. The president came out last evening and said that we will be cutting off travel from Europe to the United States now. So there's people that are now scrambling, trying to get back, and I've read that they're paying as much as $20,000 to get a ticket to get home. So it is a real situation where people can get trapped in a location that they don't want to be for a very long time. And by a very long time, that could be days, it could be weeks, and or it could be months. Who knows what the situation is going to be. So what we want to talk about a little bit is how can we mitigate that problem if we get stuck somewhere. So with that being said, Washington State, a few other states are trying to figure out how can they close the borders to their state. How can they stop the spread either out or into their geographical areas of this pandemic virus now. New York is even trying to, they've even established, taken a cue from the movie Outbreak, which I tortured myself with last night, and they've put the National Guard into an area of one of their towns to completely shut it down. They don't want people going in, they don't want people going out. So that's a pretty extreme kind of situation that might actually classify as a martial law type of thing. And I know that's always been a mental exercise with our community about, oh, martial law this and all that. Well, what we're really looking at now is medical containment. Containment, we try to avoid the word quarantine because of all the negative connotations that it brings along. But medical containment is where you restrict travel, you keep people in a certain area, and then based on the necessity, you can use law enforcement to further restrict those movements or keep people within those areas. That could be just asking you nicely to self-isolate, self-contain until, for 2 weeks. Or it could be if you're going to really not listen to them, they could come after you with the full force of law enforcement and detain you. And, none of us wants that. As it is, Italy's got problems in their prisons where they had a riot last weekend, and people died, and the prison became unusable from the damage because those people felt like they were trapped in there and maybe even being left behind. So because of things like that, people don't want to be quarantined or contained. And that's understandable, even if it is in many cases for the better community good, if you will. So that begs the question, what would you do if you got stuck somewhere and were not allowed to leave? If we're lucky, we would just be at home. We would be able to stay at home because that's where our supplies are. That's where we've established. And I've always said, when asked the question, should I be ready to go first or should I be ready to bug in first? Well, my answer is I should say that you will always be ready to go first because your bug out supplies can also be used at home. Conversely, if you're only prepared to bug in because you never see yourself leaving, you can't take a lot of the home supplies and toss them in your car and be good on an evacuation. So that's my take on that situation. So if we're lucky, we are at home with the comfort of our own stuff, our familiar territory, our friends, our neighbors, our family, and we're good to go. But that may not happen. So all those normal things that we prepare for as preppers, as self-reliant folks, those things can all possibly still happen. And I'm not talking about EMPs and all those kind of things right now. What I'm talking about are the daily disruptions, the flat tires, the job loss, the injuries, the medical conditions, anything, power grid goes down, things like that. Those are all the more common, higher frequency events that we prepare for. But now let's consider what would happen if we got stuck into a place and we had a different situation. Now we have a virus that we have to take into consideration. So regardless of your opinion on the severity of the virus, the case fatality rates, is it worse than the flu, is it not worse than the flu, forget all that for right now. Let's go on the face value of that we are now today in a global pandemic. We've trained for it, we've prepared for it. Some of us, I've heard people, well, I never thought about that before. Well, I don't know how you can't. That's one of my top 3 things that I would be concerned about in my own and my family preparedness. So I wasn't really caught unaware about this whatsoever, and I've done, taken reasonable steps to get ready for that. So regardless of your opinion about the severity of the virus, people that know me always have heard me say, people are always your biggest problem. So you can think your way out of survival situations, you can plan, you can prepare, you can act, you can do all these things until someone else shows up. And once somebody else shows up and affects your situation with their views, their diversity, what they want to do, what they think is the right decision making, that's where things, they can get a little dicey. So we got a nation that's already, quite divided, and now we have to figure out how we're going to deal with the uncertainty of this emerging viral pandemic. And it's emerging. I mean, it could change, things could, right now, it looks like we have an understanding of the situation, generally speaking, from a medical perspective. Is it going to change? Could a mutation happen? Could something worse happen? Quite possibly. That's, none of us know that. But if we prepare in such a way that if that happened, it wouldn't affect us even more adversely, then all the better for that. So let's think about what we can do. So there's things are starting to happen really quickly right now. Let's take a scenario. Let's say we're sitting in traffic, and then we find out that the traffic that we're sitting in turns out to be a medical screening that was put up. Kind of like a DUI checkpoint. Maybe something along those lines. Maybe there's been a determination that that neighborhood, that area, that highway, that business, whatever it is, has to be shut down very quickly. And we've seen this actually happen already, where somebody got sick, everybody has to leave the building. Or somebody's got sick, everybody has to stay there. We've had people just last night, had people that got on the airplane up in New York, got off of Palm Beach, and didn't tell anybody he had just realized that he had come up positive for the virus. Now, what does that mean to everybody that's sitting on that aircraft? Did those people take along the little sandwich bag? Like I always say, have a little sandwich bag, got an N95 mask, some Purell wipes, maybe some rubber gloves, just something like that? Because that would be the good time to pull that out of your purse, out of your backpack or your pocket or briefcase, and put that thing on your face. And that's what we call being prepared. So that's our kind of travel, we jokingly call it our pandemic kit, but now it's not a joke. Now that kind of thing would be very useful in a situation where you're waiting to deplane, and all of a sudden, hazmat people come on and they take somebody else off who's sick, and they go walking right past your aisle, banging their hand on your seat as they go by, and you're like, okay, hold on now. If you would have had your mask out and all that kind of, your hand sanitizer off the plane, you've increased your chances of not catching that illness. So it's not so crazy anymore. Okay, so let's talk about places that we might be. Let's say that we're at a movie theater. Let's say that somebody starts coughing. Let's say that we notice that the National Guard comes in and starts establishing a perimeter like they did in New York State, which is going on as we speak. So, I mean, that would be kind of unnerving. Since the states are talking about closing their borders and setting up these checkpoints, and mass travel has been restricted, all it takes is a confirmed case of the virus in a crowded place, and a cough and panic could ensue. So let's do what we always do with this new reality. Let's use the information we have to improve our preparedness and reduce our vulnerability. That's all we're asking you to do. Take your information that now is evolving, improve your preparedness, plan for what could go wrong, think about it a little bit, and by doing so, you've reduced your vulnerability to that new situation. That's all we're doing. We're just constantly rethinking our plans. So we all have, or should have, some form of a bug out bag, a get home bag, or something in our vehicles, network, and so forth. But is your bag planned in such a way that you could now stay on an unexpected layover somewhere in a pandemic medical quarantine, medical containment area? So what could we do to make ourselves a little bit safer and a little bit more comfortable in a hot zone, if you will? So let's think about what we could do. So let's add some stuff in. We're going to call this Bug Out Bag Pandemic Edition. Let's talk about things that we would need to wear. Your bug out bag might have extra socks and maybe something like that. But if you had to stay somewhere for 2 weeks, maybe throw in a few extra clothes. Maybe add a secondary, we'll call it an overnight bag. Now that overnight can be overnight, or it could be 14 days. If the quarantine area puts you in there for 14 days, could you live out of your overnight bag? That's all we're asking. So I would say, ideally, I would put some stuff together that'll get you by for about 2 weeks. That'll be clothes, socks. If you had to sleep in a public place, maybe normally you sleep commando. I don't know what you do, but maybe it'd be a good idea to take a pair of shorts, maybe some pajamas or something along that line that will allow you to sleep in public and not have to wear your blue jeans or whatever you might be wearing. You might not want to wear your dress shoes or your hiking shoes or your boots or something all the time. So maybe toss in a pair of sandals, flip-flops, maybe some shower shoes, something that doesn't take up much room that you can slip on at night and you can shuffle off to the restroom without having to strap on some boots. Think about the toiletries that you would need. Okay, well, we already have some of that in our bug out bag, toothbrush. That's pretty important. Maybe some antacids, maybe some, your toothpaste, your shower, definitely some deodorant. Everybody will appreciate that. Maybe a brush, comb, those kind of things like that. That would be nice to have. Now start thinking about your self-protection items. A mask. I would recommend have a small handful of N95 masks. They fold up very flat, just about the size of a small envelope. You can put those in your pocket. You can put those in your backpack. And remember, they do have a service life. Just a regular N95 mask that you put on, that's more of a cloth type of mask. Depending on what your environment is, if it gets wet or something like that, it may not remain useful beyond 20, 40, 60 hours, depending on that. And we'll do another video on masks to really kind of drill that down based on the different mask types. I recommend having some nitrile gloves. It's always a great idea to have some exam gloves. You never know when you're going to have to protect yourself against fluids somewhere. So I'd keep some of those. I would also keep some eye protection, because masks, while they will help to prevent the inhalation of aerosolized particles, your eyes are still exposed to that. So a report just came out yesterday that was saying that the aerosolized viral particles can remain aloft for hours, 3 hours or more. So, and I remind people, if you look at people that are vaping out in public, when they exhale that cloud, that's a visualization of liquid droplets coming out of their lungs and hanging in the air. And you walk through that, but so you can see that when somebody does that because of the cloud. We're all still breathing all this stuff out and it's all going everywhere. But when we now walk through everybody's aerosolized droplets, we just don't see it visually. So that's why it's important to have a mask. That's why it's important to have some eye protection of some sort to keep that kind of stuff out of your mucous membranes, out of your eyes. So that would be a great thing to have. If you're really worried about getting into a situation where you're handling people, maybe you'll even want to put in a Tyvek suit. You know, a Tyvek, that's the white coveralls. They fold up very, very small, about the size of a burrito, but it's a full body suit. If with a hood, if that's the level of protection that you would like to have. If you're going to go that route, you'll also want to have some tape to wrap around the cuffs, around your ankles, and around your wrists. And if you're worried about walking through any kind of fluids or we're a contaminated area, then maybe some rubber over boots. Now that takes it to a whole nother level. I'm not saying everybody should put that in their car, but it doesn't take much to put that kind of a kit together. I'll show you one here shortly. I'll put one together, take a B-roll shot of that. So spray bleach or a liquid surface cleaner might be something nice to toss in the vehicle. Now I would say if you got kids and stuff, make sure that these kind of things are not accessible by them, because they can start squirting, and we don't want bleach in any eyeballs or playing around with it. But a good Lysol bleach surface cleaner with some paper towels or some Lysol wipes even, not as good as the full-on bleach surface cleaner, but it will help. That would be good to have if you got into an area you need to wipe down the inside of the car, or you get somewhere and you want to wipe off a surface where you're spending the night. You want to wipe off the door handles and knobs and all that kind of stuff. Hey, that doesn't hurt. If you got room for it, I say go for it. Bar soap and in a travel dish or just a Ziploc sandwich bag, just put a bar soap. Bar soap is going to be better than hand sanitizer. The reason I say that is because here's how it is. If you want to put hand sanitizer in, if you're not going to get it right now, it's all sold out. You need a hand sanitizer with a minimum alcohol content of 60%. So anything less than 60% is not going to do what you need it to do. The reason that hand soap with warm water wash for all the 22 seconds that they call for is better is because when you wash your hands with soap, you're washing away the germs. The soap isn't really killing the germs. It is releasing it from your skin and washing it away. Hand sanitizer, when you put it on, you've got to use it and make your hands very wet all the way down the wrists, and you're not washing the germs away. Whatever was on your hands are still on your hands. You've just hoped that the hand sanitizer has disabled the virus. So now you can kind of see why they say hand sanitizer is not the preferred way to go. It's the hand washing. But with hand washing, you just need to find some running water to wash that away. So if you're going to do that, it's also a good idea to throw a washcloth in your bag. It's a good idea to throw either a hand towel or a full-on bath towel. You never know how long you're going to be gone, so maybe that will add to your toiletries kit. And start thinking about, okay, well, how do I communicate with somebody? How do I let them know what's going on with me? So your cell phone, you want to make sure you have all the proper cables for your cell phone, your devices, your GPS, whatever it is, and one of those battery, at least one of those battery backup charger packs. I like the 10,000 milliamp backup packs that have multiple USBs on them. Some of them even have little flashlights built into them. That will give you a recharge in case you get into a situation where you cannot get to a wall charger. So now you're giving yourself that extra power on your devices. So that's a good thing to have. But make sure you have all the right cables and your backup charger stays charged. So that's pretty handy too. I recommend having a paper map at the street level. If you get kind of pinned into an area, it would be nice to know what all the streets are around you, have an idea what the businesses are around you, what the lodging accommodations might be. Is there a hotel you can go to? Is there bed and breakfast, Airbnb? Is there any of those kind of environments that you can go and get some lodging and just lock yourself in for a little while? So that would be pretty handy to know. Offline GPS maps saved to your phone. We just did an issue in Survival Dispatch Insider where we talked about tech in survival, and that is one of the things that we talk about. You can go and use your Google Maps. You can and it'll say, would you like to download this map for offline use? Yes, and it'll stay on there, I believe, for about 30 days before it disappears. So once you get into an area, just in case you lose signal or something goes wrong, you'll have that map saved to your phone. You can still operate within that map. All that data is there. So that's a helpful tip for that. You also want to have some food and some water. You don't want to count on trying to get your food and water from anywhere else. In a containment area, businesses are likely to be shut. closed, offline, doors locked, lights out, everybody gone home. So you're not likely to be able to pull through a drive-through, possibly. You may not be able to go into a grocery store. So it wouldn't hurt to have some kind of nutrition in your car. It can be protein bars, it can be, whatever it is. It could be a case of water, whatever you want to keep in there that will kind of get you by until you can get established or the relief point gets set up. Now, I don't want to depend on anybody else, so I'm going to have some things in my vehicle that if I had to, I'd be okay. Putting 2 weeks worth of food in a car can be very difficult. And because we're not just talking about just us, we have to talk about our whole family for all of these items. So now we've got to start thinking this through a little bit. Toilet paper, well, there's been a run on toilet paper nationwide. I don't know why. I think it's because all of a sudden people started buying toilet paper because that's not one of the things that most people stock. And they're like, well, if I got to stay home, I can't run out tomorrow and buy more. I'll just buy a bunch. And because they're buying it, other people are buying it because it starts to take a life of its own. And now everybody thinks they have to have toilet paper. Well, they do. But if they would have started stocking that previously, they wouldn't have run out and started a panic and started freaking other people out to go buy the same thing. So there's that. Baby wipes are a great alternative to that. You can get baby wipes. They got the little flip lids on them. They're moist. They're soapy. You can get the water version, or you can get the ones that have the soap inside of them. Either way, they'll go a long ways towards taking a bath in your car, cleaning up after accidents, whatever it is. A blanket, some sort of sleeping blankets or sleeping bag or whatever you need for your environment. Those military poncho liners, I love them. Got several of them. They crunch down very small. You can put them into a stuff sack. You can throw them under a seat and throw them in the trunk. And they are very, very warm. Love those things. I think that they're amazing for bug out bags, and they're great to just keep in your vehicle. And some cash. You want cash in case your cards don't work or in case you get into a containment area where now people don't want to take credit or can't take credit. So now you want to be able to use cash in denominations that you can use for food and small supplies, gas, things like that. So you don't want a $100 bill tucked in your wallet. If you can't break it, it's not going to do you any good. But if you've got some ones, fives, tens, things like that, then now you can work a little bit better within that. So now that those are some add-on supplies that you can put into your bug out bag kit or add-on pandemic enhancement to the kit. Let's talk about your commo plan, your communications plan. Have you written down the critical phone numbers out of your cell phone and put them on a piece of paper in a little notebook? That would be handy because if your phone dies, you lose your whole life for most of us. So write down some critical phone numbers, write down some addresses, things like that would be good to have on paper. Get a little write in the rain notepad, get a little journal, diary, whatever it is that you want to keep all that stuff written down and go with it. You're not going to write down your whole phone book. My phone's got like 1,700 numbers in it. I'm only going to need the top bunch of them that are going to say, okay, this is my family, these are my neighbors in case I have to call home. That kind of stuff. And I'm going to go into a little bit more of that. We're going to talk about a family continuity of operations video here shortly. We'll dig into that a little bit more. But identify your out-of-area contact, your OOAC, if you want an acronym. Make sure that is a person who is out of the containment area, far away, could be another state, another county, doesn't matter where it is, that you can call up and say, hey, I have been locked down on medical containment. I cannot get out. I can't go pick up the kids from school. I cannot get home from this business trip from the other state that I'm in. I need you, my out-of-area contact could be Aunt Sally, could whoever it is. Now, I need you to communicate with the family and let them know what's going on with me. But make sure they know that. You don't just want to surprise somebody. That way they can start looking for unexpected phone numbers and calls and stuff, and they're like, I don't know who that is. So, identify your out-of-area contact, inform them on what you want them to do, what you need them to do, and have them be your relay to other people in case you can't catch them for whatever reason. Also, I would write down a list of local useful locations where you are. So in the containment area you find yourself, this is not your neighborhood maybe. You don't know anything around here. Start driving around. Where are the grocery stores? Where's the doctor's office? Where, whatever it is, and start drawing that on your map. Start establishing yourself. Create that study of the area that you're in. Keep that information with you so that now If something changes, you can say, wait, I'm only 2 blocks from the hospital, or I'm 4 blocks from this grocery store, or there's a corner market over here that maybe is going to be not rated out for all of their supplies as fast as maybe one of the larger grocery stores would be. So that kind of thing would be really handy to know, written down. So now there's the key here is to think about everyone else that is traveling with you. So our enhanced kit's not going to go very far if we have several people in the car and several kids and the dogs and everything else with us, if we only built a kit for one person. And I can't tell you how many times through our business of disaster consulting where I've had people, we've talked about bug out bags, and they're like, well, I got mine, but I forgot all about the wife and the kids and the dogs and everything else. And now what am I going to do? I got to start all over again, and I got to build on that. So think about that now. Don't wait for that to be a problem later on. So what kind of special needs would each of those specific people in your family need? Do you have a baby that needs diapers and wipes? Do you need baby formula? Do you have bottles or disposable bottles? Do you have pacifiers? Do you have, gripe water or whatever maybe a baby might need? Any medications for the baby? The clothes for the baby? All that kind of stuff. Throw a little extra diaper bag worth of stuff into the car somewhere. That way you'll have it. And of course you got to pay attention to heat when it comes to baby formula, and those expiration dates on baby formula. Those are a hard stop, more so than regular adult food, which are more best by dates. So start thinking about that. Rotate that kind of stuff out so it'll be fresh when you need it, ready to go. Burp cloths, all those kind of things that babies might need. If you're going to take pets somewhere and you get stuck, do you have their leashes? Do you have their shot records? Do you have their rabies tags? Are the rabies up to date? You're not going to get into a shelter if they cannot identify that those dogs have had their shots, the rabies shots and all that kind of stuff, because they don't want that in the shelters if you, for some reason, got directed to that kind of a medical containment. So think about your dogs or your cats. Medical records for any current conditions that a doctor might need to know. You get into a containment area, you fall sick. We're always looking at, it's not us, it's always everybody else. That's not the case. You might actually become sick. You might become ill yourself. If that's the case, do you have any underlying medical conditions that could cause complications? If you have records or you have that written down or on a phone app or something that is with you, you can give it to the doctor. You say, here's my list of medications. Here's what's going on with me. These are things to think about in my medical care now that I'm sick. And then you go unconscious. At least they have that. They know who your next of kin is. They know who to call. They know enough about you to provide the level of care that you need specific to your situation. And that's pretty important. And goes on with medications. If you're traveling, try to take a little extra medication with you. You can go to your doctor, your pharmacy. They're more than happy to give extended, medications these days. Have that. Can you secure? Now, here's the thing that if you find yourself on a trip in a vehicle with family, maybe kids, maybe irresponsible people that are traveling with you, or not trained people when it comes to firearms or medications or stuff like that, do you have a way in your vehicle to secure a firearm while everybody is sleeping? Do you have a little lock box or something you can lock up your medications so that the kids, don't wake up and start munching on them in a hotel room, or playing with your firearm in a hotel room? Something along that line. So start thinking about the safety side of the things that you're taking with you. So that's pretty important. It's a good idea to add it if you've got babies or small children that can't walk a lot. Throw a stroller in the trunk. Even if it's a little fold-up umbrella stroller, it's better than nothing. They're not great, but it's better than carrying everything in your arms and trying to walk. If you had to leave your car and go walk back and forth to a place where you're going to sleep, or whatever the containment situation calls for. The fold-up wagons that go in the trunk of the car, take them out, they open all the way up into like a lawn cart type of thing. That's great. Put a wagon in there in case you have to carry gear and kids and roll them down the road or across a parking lot or something like that. That would come in handy. So now I'm going to ask you, in the comments section, ask yourself, what else would you need to take along? Share that in the comments down below. Click on the subscribe button for Survival Dispatch. Check out this and all kinds of other great things that we try to teach, share, learn, train at insider.survivaldispatch.com. And until next time, this is Charley Hogwood signing out.